this is DAML. This is really the sort of secret sauce that comes from digital asset. It's a smart contract language that lets you model out the behaviors, the rights, the privacy requirements of smart contracts on a distributed ledger. Hopefully, if you're looking at this, and even though you're not technical, you'll be able to understand what these smart contracts are doing. So those tokens that you guys have been passing around have been of type funding, which are described by these fields and the behavior that I spell out below. So yeah, you can spend it, you can give it away, you can split it up, and you can sweep two funds together into a single account. And hopefully none of this is really rocket science looking, and that's done deliberately. All of the sort of heavy lifting that you normally have to do on the architecture layer or the persistence layer is abstracted away from you. So there's no SQL commands in here. There's nothing about hashing or cryptography or about authorization or anything other than the business logic. And hopefully you can see that here. So for instance, when we say, okay, we want to spend, this is either going to result in a wire request to the Treasury, or it's going to actually create that wire. And so you send in the settlement instructions and we say, okay, this is the wire that we want to create. If the amount that we want to spend is greater than the limit, then create a wire request to the Treasury, okay, with all of the details that we wanted. And it's actually going to lock your account. It's basically going to put it in an escrow. Otherwise, create the wire directly. And what that'll mean is within an organization that's going to be picked up by, let's say, a settlement, like a settlement utility, which will then create the actual wire. Okay, and all of the 100% of DAML is like this. It's going to be describing how smart contracts work in a business context. Okay. A very important point here is that which is a little bit different with DAML as opposed to other languages, is that it enforces privacy and rights very, very, very strictly. It basically says that any type of funding has to be backed by the Treasury, and the Treasury is never going to be placed inside that obligation without their consent. And nothing can happen on this persistence layer on the ledger that isn't one of these choices on here.
Levi, there's a question from Bart. Can you explain the left and right in the return?
This thing right here?
Yeah, the left wire request and the right wire.
Okay, yeah, very simple. So the type of this, the type of this choice is either going to result in a wire request. Basically, it's going to create a new contract of type wire request or of contract type wire. And it's basically saying that in the case of a wire request, that we have to make the request because we are over that wire limit, it's going to be using the left side of this either type. This entire thing here is the type of the return. And here we're just indicating that in this case, it's the left side of that return. It's useful when, let's say, the either is going to be the same type. Whereas with when we're saying the right side, it's basically create the wire directly. Okay. Yeah. So if for the more computer science folks out there, the left and right are there to ensure that the type of this return is consistent.
Yeah, and Levi, could you explain the concept of the signatory, which is on top, the signatory issuer, and also the concept of the controller, and who can exercise the choice spend? For in this case, can the issuer do spend? Can you explain that?
Good point. So here, as I said about the signatory, is that's the person who's responsible for this type of contract. They're the obligeable party, that's the liability party, however you want to look at it. The controllers, on the other hand, in this case, the owner gets to do everything, is the person who has the asset side of that transaction. Or in this case, it's a person who can do something, he may do something, he has the option to, however you want to look at it. But this is also the only thing that is required to specify that when I go back to my UI here, that let's look at this token for $100. Oh, by the way, I shouldn't say token. It's a contract for $100. Even though I'm the treasurer and I'm a stakeholder to this contract because I'm undersigning this thing, and really that's undersigned and signatory are kind of hand in hand. If I try to actually spend this thing, let's see, I want to buy a smoothie for $100, then I won't be able to do it. Now, there's an exception which is being thrown out here that we're ignoring, but effectively there's no way I could do this. However, if I take a look at one of my own tokens, so let me split off $500 here. Since this is my own token as a treasurer, I can use that to buy my smoothie. There we go. So now a wire has